Running is a fantastic activity that is free to do. You can do it from your own front door, doesn't require any subscription fees, gets you out in the open air, and is a good form of exercise for many people. However, there are a great many ladies out there that enjoy their running but find that they have those oops moments when they're out for a run, or maybe particularly if they're doing slightly longer runs, feel like they're going to wet themselves or desperately have to go to the toilet partway through that run. Now, this is a lot more common than you think. Depending on the research studies you look at, even looking at elite marathon runners, between 30 and 50% of women will encounter some form of urinary continence, whether they're amateur runners or elite trained athletes. So is this something that we just have to put up with? Not at all. There are so many things we can do to help. And this is an area I feel really passionate about, because often women are led to believe it's just one of those things, particularly if they've had a baby. They think it's just something that happens after you've had a baby, or it's something that happens with age. Neither of those two things have to be the case. And so in this article, I'm going to talk through some of the things to think about. Now, a little bit of context at the time of recording this as well is that we are in the middle of lockdown. So because of the COVID-19 or coronavirus, we're confined to our homes. We're allowed out once a day, and that could be for a good long walk. It could be for a run. And so it's a time when many people are taking up running because it gets them out of the house doing a good form of exercise, which is brilliant. But if you are encountering that feeling of heaviness, dragging through your pelvis, persistent low back pain is happening as well, can be linked to your pelvic floor, or you are having those oops moments, or completely wetting yourself, then this is specially for you. I'm going to go through 10 tips to bear in mind to support you. And the thing that I'm very mindful of, in an ideal world, we would say, don't run. Let's sort this out for you, help you to build that resilience through your pelvic floor, because bear in mind, it may not be more strength that your pelvic floor needs. More on that in a minute. And then we can go back to running afterwards. However, I'm really aware that for many women, running is not just about getting in some exercise. It's a support for mental and emotional health as well. It's freedom from the daily grind, and it gives that little bit of free thinking space. So I do like to facilitate continuation of running wherever possible, or sometimes we introduce a short break to bring in other measures. So it's important to work out what is right for you. So the first thing I would always say to anybody who's encountering any discomfort through their chosen activity, be it running, be it high impact sports as well. So again, at the time of recording, Jo Wicks, the body coach, is very kindly doing PE every morning at 9 o'clock on YouTube. Now, a lot of those exercises are high impact. So there's a lot of ladies discovering their pelvic floor could do with some TLC as a result of that. And these points apply to that as much as they do to running as well. And my first point would always be seek professional support. Usually I refer to a female health physio who can do an assessment on what's going on in your pelvic floor. And this is important because not all pelvic floor issues or concerns are related to weakness. Sometimes, particularly when we're looking at more trained individuals, there can be an element of tension, residual tension within the pelvic floor that is just not letting go. And so that gets fatigued and then gives. And some of the symptoms of a weak pelvic floor are actually the same if you have an overactive or hypertonic pelvic floor as well. So that professional support diagnosis can really help us to understand whether we do need strengthening work or whether we need to focus more on being able to release fully and then build from there. Now, again, at the time of recording this, going to see a female health physio just isn't an option because of social distancing. That doesn't mean help isn't available. Myself and fellow Holistic Core Restore coaches can talk you through a series of questions to get a clearer picture on what's going on for you and provide support from there. So, and again, you can find Holistic Core Restore coaches near you simply by going to holisticcoreRestore.com, and there's a find a coach section on there. Now, the other thing is to include other forms of training. And again, this is for your mental health, your physical strength, and supporting your pelvic floor. Because the key thing about our pelvic floors is they don't work on their own. They don't work in a bubble or in isolation. And when something happens that we're not particularly happy about with our pelvic floor, we're moving, whether that's a cough, laugh, sneeze, a jump, or a run. So let's train that pelvic floor to be able to handle the movement that we want to do. And including other forms of training can help with that. Now, that can be core connection work, it can include Pilates, it can include strength work. Personally as well, I like all my running clients to be doing forms of strength work, not only to support their core and pelvic floor, but to support the rest of their body as well. The third thing, would be to make sure that you've got supportive footwear. Often we have our favourite pair of trainers and we wear them run in, run out, every activity we do, and understandably the support that they offer can reduce over time, particularly the more we wear them. So be aware of how old your trainers are, whether they're supporting for the particular activity that you're doing. And the reality is that if you're running outside, you may need a different form of support in shoes for that compared to training in the gym, for example. Now, from my point of view, that connection to your core starts down at your feet. And all the work that I do does look at the movement through your feet, what happens through your feet when you start to do other movements. And bear in mind, with running, every step, that impact reverberates all the way up to your pelvic floor as well. So the connection of your foot with the floor, as well as what footwear you're using, is very important for your core and floor health. Fourthly, choose appropriate clothing. Now, I'm not going to make any remarks here about choosing dark clothing so no one can see if you've wet yourself. Personally, I don't think we need to go there. Wear what's comfortable for you. And yes, pads can form a way for you to maintain your dignity whilst you are addressing concerns with your pelvic floor, particularly leakage. However, please be aware they are not the solution in themselves. They're the boat to get you to the other side, to support you whilst you address those pelvic floor issues so that you don't have to use them forever and ongoing. But the other thing that you can do is use other forms of supportive clothing. So EVB Sports have developed a range of clothing now. I was going to say shorts, but they do much more than shorts now. Yvonne Brady, the founder, was a lady who, after giving birth, returned to running and leaked. And she's a brilliant lady for sharing her story. And being an engineer, she thought, no, I'm not having this, and developed a range of clothing to provide additional support for your pelvic floor from the outside in. I'll pop the URL, the website, to find out more about EVB Sports clothing below, but they are well worth checking out. Again, please remember, supportive clothing is an aid. It's not the solution in itself, but it can help you to stay active whilst dealing with those underlying issues and causes. The next point to talk about would be to vary the terrain that you're running on. So if you're running outside, are you only running on roads? Is it possible to run on grass, for example? If you're just a treadmill runner, again, can you vary that at all? That comes back to your footwear as well. But just think about what surfaces you're running on, how uneven they are, and even things like the length of your gait. So how far apart your feet fall as you're running, to influence the cadence, which influences the impact of the feet on the floor. And again, that reverberates all the way up to your pelvic floor and beyond. And I would say build your distances up gradually. Now, this is obviously doing that work to support your pelvic floor and core around this as well, and not just carrying on with running regardless. But start small and gradually increase those distances. And listen to your body throughout. Now, an important thing to point out here is that your pelvic floor is influenced by other areas in your life. If you are tired, your pelvic floor is tired. So if you haven't slept well, if you've had a lot of sleep disturbances and you are feeling tired, your pelvic floor will be tired as well. And that may make any leakage or issues that you experience worse. Similarly, you may have a different feeling in your pelvis at different points in your cycle. I refer to stages in your cycle like seasons of the year. I will link to that. It's a whole blog in itself. I will link to that in the notes below this video. So please check that out if this is something that is of interest to you. But listen to your body, to how much sleep you've had, where you are in your cycle, and other factors that can influence that connection through to your pelvic floor, but the endurance ability of your pelvic floor during your exercise as well. And that's the next point, is that this is not just about your pelvic floor. And this is one of my phrases, is that it's all about your pelvic floor, but not just about your pelvic floor. Although that's where we focus our attention. And I guess that's where the notion that just doing pelvic floor squeezes is going to sort everything out. Just flipping back to my very original point, if it's not an issue of weakness that is causing the symptoms you're experiencing, just doing squeezes isn't going to address the issue for you, which is why it's really important to understand what is happening for you. So yes, we need to focus on that connection through the pelvic floor, both in terms of squeezing and tightening, but also releasing and relaxing. But we also need to understand the other areas of our life that impact on the strength and resilience, the ability to respond of our pelvic floor. Now, again, this is a whole blog post in itself, and it's one that I have coming up. So to make sure that you get access to that, please do sign up to my mailing list, as you will be notified as soon as it's published there as well. And you can do that in the links below this video, or if you're listening as well. So the penultimate, second to last point, we're on point number 9, is sleep. And I've mentioned this already, but if you are tired, so is your pelvic floor. So bear that in mind. If you know you're going to be really busy and that's the kind of tiring day that you have, maybe it's only a short run, if any, that you do that day, or evening if it's in the evening. And equally recognize that your pelvic floor will be more tired at the end of the day than it is at the beginning of the day. So that may help you in choosing what time of day you do your impact exercises or go for a run, so that you're able to support your pelvic floor a little bit more. And finally, be aware of other aspects of your body. Just start to notice things you do. So the things that I can look out for in clients is, do they hold their breath when they go to do particular moves? Are they clenching their teeth? Are their shoulders up around the ear? Because again, that shoulder position affects the pressure through the center of our body and down into our pelvic floor. So it really is about a whole body, whole life approach, really. Even our nutrition has a part to play in the health and resilience of our pelvic floor. And considering all of these options can help you to stay running or to get back to running more quickly without those ups moments, without that pelvic discomfort, or just the fear that something might happen, so that you can run, jump, and exercise in whatever way you like with confidence. So if you have any specific questions or you would like to know more, do check out the links I've mentioned, but also feel free to contact me. You can email me again via the email address below. I would love to hear from you. And again, don't think this is something that will go away. Please do not think that this is just one of those things that happens to lots of women and therefore it is okay. It does happen to lots of women, but there are lots of things we can do to alleviate it. It won't get better on its own, but there are things you can do to make it better, and certainly to stop it from getting worse, so you can stay as active and as healthy for as long as possible.